So this week's Parsha Vayigash starts with the epic showdown between the two brothers, Yosef and Yehuda. Last week I already discussed the internal greatness and perfection of Yosef, the golden child, the only man called tzaddik by the Torah during his lifetime, and how he lived authentically, acting out his internal perfection, how every action was a reflection of who he was and what his values were, how he was an uncompromising visionary and prophet, and how his descendant, Mashiach ben Yosef, also lives his vision, making it reality and paves the way for the Mashiach ben David, who finishes the job that we've all struggled to complete for so long. Now we come to Yehuda, the forefather of our tribe, the forefather of King David and the Messiah, the Mashiach. Yehuda is a very different character than Yosef, for good and for bad. He's flawed and passionate, as the Tamar story clearly shows, but he's also courageous, honest, and willing to do the right and moral thing, whatever the cost, as the same story shows. But although these are required traits for a good Jewish king, I don't believe these are the end of the story. Not for Yehuda, not for King David, his descendant, and not for Melech HaMashiach, the son of David, HaMelech. There are multiple deeper levels to Yehuda's abilities. Without getting into all of his amazing leadership and interpersonal qualities, which we see from the stories in these fascinating parshiot, and that made him so effective in getting things done and being a leader to his brothers and being looked up to and having the confidence of his family, I want to focus on what I believe is a crucial quality that we can benefit from when we institute it in our own lives. Yehuda does not focus on the past. He lives in the present and is very, very proactive, focusing only on what can be done to improve things for the future. There is no focus at all on the past. When the brothers come back to their father from their first trip to Egypt, Yehuda doesn't get involved in the first conversation at all. The brothers tell their father the bad news about Shimon being in prison and Binyamin needing to go back with them for the second trip. Yehuda is not involved in this conversation and doesn't talk to Yaakov about sending Binyamin until the food runs out. And this is probably months later, I would imagine. It doesn't say how long later, but all the food ran out. And not until Yaakov himself brings it up and asks them to go back down to Egypt does Yehuda start talking to him about it. And when Yaakov answers Yehuda, after Yehuda says, "Send Binyamin, we're not going without Binyamin," Yaakov answers Yehuda with a blame game. Why did you tell the Egyptian about Binyamin, all dwelling on it? At this point, Yehuda does not answer this question. Only the brothers answered with, "It's not our fault." It's like a whole blame game goes on between the brothers and Yaakov. Yehuda understood Yaakov's state of mind and did not get into defending his and their past actions. He let the brothers handle that. He only came back in for the close when his father finished dwelling on the past and it was time to close the deal. And then he spoke up and he made a few points. Well, number one, we're all going to die if we don't take Binyamin with us to Egypt. Not just Binyamin's going to die, we're all going to die, including Binyamin. Second point he made, I will personally guarantee his safety. This was very significant because Yaakov had a lot of confidence in Yehuda, as his brothers did, and also because Yehuda was more valuable as a slave to the Egyptians than Binyamin. He was way more valuable on a physical level. So in terms of safety for Binyamin, Yehuda was offering himself, which was more valuable than Binyamin. So this was a very strong deal-making, thing. And then he also tells his father, "We could have been there and back twice in this same time if you wouldn't have delayed us." So basically putting the pressure on. We see the same focus on the present and proactivity in Yehuda's conversation with Yosef in our parsha. Yehuda never even tries to defend Binyamin. Not once does he even mention Binyamin in terms of what he did or claim that he's innocent. No claims of innocence, no claims whatsoever on Binyamin, not doing what he said he was done. Yehuda does not address the elephant in the room at all. It's really the elephant in the room. This is the whole point of the story is the stolen cup that Binyamin stole and Yehuda doesn't even mention it. Instead, he starts softly and humbly, asking Yosef not to get angry at his honest and open speech. He starts by diffusing the tension and the anger. Then he goes into the whole backstory to help Yosef get some perspective on the entire incident from the beginning, rather than just allowing Yosef to consider the situation with only the single last piece of the story that angered him, where Binyamin allegedly stole his cup. So he's giving the big picture and giving Yosef some perspective on his own complicity in this incident, but without directly saying that he bears some of the blame, and bringing up his father's pain as part of the story without telling Yosef, you are causing and will cause my father more pain and suffering. So he doesn't put it on Yosef in that way. He's just painting the picture. And after painting the whole picture for Yosef in a non-accusatory way, where Yosef can see all the causes and effects of the whole affair, including his own causes, without him getting defensive, Yehuda then goes in for the close again and offers himself as a slave instead of Binyamin. Perfect timing, perfect pacing. He's a master negotiator and deal maker. He made it a whole different story. But the point is, he focuses only on the present. He made no excuses for the past. He didn't even talk about the past. He's only talking about the present. This is, how we got here. This is where we are right now. I'm offering a solution that should work for you, Yosef. It should work for all of us. I'm willing, Binyamin's certainly willing to go home, and you, Yosef, you'll get a better slave. But I think there's another deeper level to Yehuda's kingship, not just the living in the present and this proactivity. There's a deeper level to this, and by extension, the connection to King David and Melech HaMashiach. It's about redemption and tshuva. We know that God created the idea of tshuva before creating the universe, because the world and humanity could not survive without the ability to do tshuva. We also know that the redemption from Egypt is the foundation of our nation. When we make Kiddush Friday night, we sanctify Shabbos as a symbol of God's creation of the world in 6 days and resting on the seventh. We also remember the Exodus from Egypt. It's as important to Judaism as is the creation of the world. Those are the only two concepts in Kiddush. Why is this? Why is this so important? So the line of kings came from Yehuda's falling down and rising back up, because the story started with Yehuda partnering with a local, Hira Adulami, and marrying a local, the daughter of Shua, Bat Shua. So he basically left his brothers and went off with the locals, the Kanani people. It even calls them Kanani, but the Mefarshim say it doesn't mean Kanani literally, but they were certainly the locals. And it ended with the same story ended with Tamar bearing Yehuda's twins, Peretz and Zarach, with Peretz being the father of the Jewish monarchy. When the story starts, the Torah refers to Yehuda as going down. It says he went down. And the Medrash says that he left his brothers after the sale of Yosef because he felt guilty, he felt responsible, and his brothers felt that he was responsible for what happened with Yosef after they saw how regretful their father was, how bad their father was. They really regretted it a little, and they blamed Yehuda. And Yehuda blamed himself, and he went down. This story is super significant and not coincidental at all, because the Torah tells this story right after it tells the story of selling Yosef. And then right after this story, it goes right back to Yosef. It continues with him in Egypt, which is basically simultaneous. And then right after the story of Yosef in Egypt, the famine starts and the brothers come down and have the whole face-off with Yosef. So these things are happening literally simultaneously, and it's the only two stories that the Torah talks about from this period. They're clearly connected, and it's right. What we see at the same time that Yosef is paving the way for the Jews in Egypt, that's what he went down to pave the way. The Torah tells us the story of Yehuda going down, falling, which culminates in Yehuda and Tamar creating the future king of Israel. It's at the same time, and it's very clear, this connection. So what is it between his going down and creating the future king of Israel, creating the monarchy, really creating the monarchy of Israel and the Mashiach. So what it is we have the ability to rise up from exactly where we are at any time and any stage of our life. It's a supernatural force that has been built into creation from its inception. Wherever you are, God has told us, wherever you are in the world and wherever you are in your time and place in the world, you have the ability to rise up from right there. And what defines a king, a Jewish king, and really we're all the kings of our own lives. If you don't see that you're the king of your own life, you really need to re-examine how you see yourself. What defines a king is how he acts in the present. The past cannot be changed, and in many cases should not even be defended. Don't waste your time defending the past or trying to change the past. A king focuses on where he goes from here, from right where he is now. Obviously, he has to regret the past and change the behaviors that led to the past outcomes. This is part of the dynamic of tshuva and actually how it works. You can't, tshuva includes regretting the past and changing the behaviors that led to the past. But that's not the same thing as dwelling in the past. The key is not to dwell in the past and not get caught up in the past. This is Egypt and bondage. The past is literally Egypt and bondage, and it catches you up and it holds on to you, and it's a burden. Living in the present and being proactive without giving up. This is freedom, because living in the past means giving up on the present. Living in the present means not giving up and being proactive, and this is the definition of freedom. Tshuva is not easy; it's very hard work, but it is doable, and it's necessary for all of us to be redeemed in our own lives. And the Melech HaMashiach, just like his forefather Yehuda, is a master of tshuva and redemption, and will help all of us to confront our own pasts and throw up the burdens of bondage represented by our past behaviors, and help us to live in freedom and redemption. And this is the key to the kingdom. This is literally the key to the kingdom. May we all experience this redemption, and may we see the rebuilding of the Holy Temple and the redemption of the Shekhinah soon in our days. Shabbat Shalom from Renana, Israel.